Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Elbows Tech Podcast. This is episode or part 2 of the 6 common fears when first starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So last episode, we covered the first 3. It was the fear of failure. It was the fear of
being injured,
and then physical limitations. Today, we have the next 3. Obviously, that's why it's part 2. Anyways, so... Let's just jump straight into it. John, what is number 4 of the 6 common fears?
Man, so this is a big one. Time and financial commitments.
Yes.
A lot of people, it's true. A lot of people, myself included, you got to start weighing, man, are you going to have the time to do it? Is it financially viable? Can you afford it? And then once you're paying for it, you definitely want to use it, right? Yeah. It's definitely time consuming. It requires both not just a money investment, but the physical investment.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, the way I look at it is it's one of the things that I could do where it's good for my body and my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking at, well, how much is it costing me? And when I look at it that way, it's not that much.
Right.
I'd rather be my well-being mentally and physical. I mean, even if you're paying $200 a month for your gym, which a lot of places are, what you're getting out of that, as long as you're going, I think it's well worth the money.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because we do pay for it, and you do pay a pretty penny for jiu-jitsu, typically just from what I've seen, it's, over $100, maybe over $200, maybe over $300, depending on where you train. It makes you appreciate where that money's going, so you have to do it, right? Because no one wants to be paying,
right,
all this money a month to not go to jiu-jitsu, right? And like John mentioned, you have to look at it in a sense of where are you gaining from this financial and time commitment, right? Because there's a lot you gain from challenging yourself on a daily basis, every couple times a week. And then there's also, think of it when I used to coach CrossFit, people would complain or they would comment on how expensive the CrossFit gym is, right? And it's like, yeah, it can get expensive, but how many times a week do you eat out? How many times are you buying coffee? How many times are you doing these other things where you could be saving the money and reinvesting it back into yourself for the long term, right? So same thing with right now, my biggest problem is a time constraint. And secondary is financial, right? Because it is, we have 3 kids and inflation and stuff like that. So, jiu-jitsu does cut into a little bit of our money, but having the 2 young kids, it takes my time away from them, but I know it's like a mental reset for me, so I have to look at it in a sense of like, yes, it's going to take, 2.5 hours, but that 2.5 hours is going to give me a mental break from being, all my responsibilities. And then in turn, it's just going to give me more to give to them in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for me, if it was time versus the financial commitment, time, it would also be the biggest issue.
Yeah.
And I mean, lucky for us where we train, they're trying to get us, more days, different times. And it could be something as simple as a 5 o'clock class versus a 6 o'clock class. I guess for people that might be looking at that, and it's going to be part of their determination if they're going to do jiu-jitsu or not. I think Travis had a couple good points there. Look at what you're going to get out of it. Check out a couple gyms in your area if you're just starting.
If possible.
Yeah, like I didn't think about a schedule when we first started this.
Yeah.
That wasn't even on my mind. That is a huge factor now.
Yep.
The earlier the class, the better. Like we all have family lives. We all got to get up and go to work.
Steve Kwan said that's the number one thing you should look at when finding a brand new academy is schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it is the biggest thing for me right now. I would pay more for a better schedule. Like that's just the way it is. Like I'm not getting back time. I'm not.
Yeah.
So I would recommend you really look at the schedule before you get into it. on the financial aspect, see if they have like a family plan. You know, if it's going to be you, your kids, your spouse, see if you can get a discount. That's another way you could look at that.
Yeah. And one thing that you could do too is say if you're in a similar situation to like like I am, where you have kids, money's a little bit tighter right now. What what I would do is I would go to my significant other with kind of like an analysis of how we can afford to let me and my kids do it, and how we can gather the money where we can, trim some fat and then reallocate it and put it towards something that's going to help with longevity as me as a person. So that's one thing you can think of. And, when it comes to time, you're going to make things that are important to you a priority. You know, you can, my Ben Phelps, one of the guys that was on our podcast, he posted a reel where it was kind of like a fitness. He's a fitness and coach, and he's saying, if you have time to be scrolling on your phone, you have time to be working out. And that's the same thing for jujitsu. If you have an hour, 2 hours a day of sitting and watching TV, well, look to see if there's an academy that has time for those hours or 2 hours that you would just be watching TV. Like you mentioned the other day, we're so busy. It's literally we get home, we do our duties.
When I don't sit down.
Yeah, we do our duties. Don't sit down and don't relax, because then we're gonna get lazy. And then it's straight to jujitsu. Come home, do our duties, and then go to bed. You know what I mean?
What I used to do at that time is I'd get home and I'd be like, all right, I have an hour and a half before class. Let me like sit down and relax a bit. Now it's like, no, what chores can I knock out for that hour and a half so I don't stop?
Yeah. You just have to look at your schedule and how you use your time wisely, because otherwise you're going to make the excuse of I don't have time more and more, because you're not using your time wisely. I hate to say it, but everyone has the same 24 hours in the day, right? But the game changer is how you use that time. Do you use the time of for an hour that you could be working out or going to the gym or whatever? Do you use the time sitting down watching Netflix, getting caught up? Hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I'm not knocking you, because there are definitely days where I don't go to jiu-jitsu because I feel lazy, and I probably should have gone to jiu-jitsu, right? But it's a real concern for a lot of people out there, and you just have to look at how you spend your time, and then how you want to spend your time if you want to start jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and I was thinking back when you were talking about the coffee. When me and my wife first started CrossFit, it was pretty pricey back in the day. We were like, man, how are we going to pay for this? We were young, barely making money. And I was like, well, let's see. We go get a coffee every morning.
Oh, man.
The both of us, which was about $10.
Yep.
It was like $5 a coffee up here. So I was like, well, we cut out the coffee. There's our gym membership for CrossFit. And so we cut it out, man, probably 20 years ago. And we just never went back to buying coffees like that again.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's ways to do it, and even probably the one I forgot, the biggest one I forgot, let me silence my phone. Excuse me, people. Sorry. Is you can also talk to your academy, your potential academy, and let them know your situation. It'd be like, hey, money's tight right now. I really want to start training. I feel like my mental health is suffering from it. Or my physical health, or I need it for X, Y, and Z reasons. Talk to them. Be like, hey, if I come in, I clean the mat, I help do something around the gym, or can we do like a prorated payment or something? Talk to the academy, and maybe they have a program, or they can help you in those times until you can start paying the full price, or maybe take over coaching or something like that. Talk to the academy too. That's something I feel like a lot of people are intimidated about doing and get like an anxiety about, because they don't want to come forth with like, hey, I'm struggling, but I still want to do this. I still want to make this a priority.
Yeah, dude, I think we had that seminar one time, and somebody showed up thinking it was an open mat.
Oh, yeah.
They did the seminar, and I think it was $100 for the seminar, and they were kind of panicking. I was like, yeah, it made me think of that.
Yeah, right. And it's like they did not pay for the seminar. They said, hey, I'm going to go get the money. I was like, all right. They never came back.
No worries.
So, but John, what's number 2?
Social anxiety. That's a big one. I don't know if you can ever really get over that in jiu-jitsu, especially when it comes to competition. I think that's a big reason people don't want to compete. It's also, I mean, it's challenging if you're going to go into an environment like jiu-jitsu and you don't know anyone and you're just walking in the door and, let's face it, not everyone is friendly. A
True.
lot of people are private and, they're introverts. So it's a real challenge to just go into an environment where you don't know anyone and you're about to, struggle cuddle with them on the mat, and do introductions. And that's a real challenge. Lately I've probably been doing a little bit of a disservice with new people. I used to be really outgoing and I'd go introduce myself, and I probably got a little jaded over the years because nobody stuck around. So it was like you were doing it like every class. And I'm going to get better on that. But I think everyone's going to understand when you show up and you're brand new. And for the most part, they're all going to treat you well.
Yeah.
And help you out with your first couple classes.
Yeah, the anxiety is real. The walking in that door the first time is a very, very scary thing. But you have to give yourself a pat on the back because 1, you got in the car.
Yeah, that's
2,
true.
You got out of the car. 3, you walked in the door, and then 4, you stood there and talked to someone about the possibility of joining. So the anxiety is real, and I still get it. I don't. When we go to other schools or other academies, you have this anxiety of how are these people going to perceive me? How are they going to treat me? Who's going to try to beat me up? Is there going to be a proving ground going on when I get on the mat and try to roll with these people? These are all real things, and you can't let your anxiety control you. I have social anxiety. I have anxiety. I'm claustrophobic. Jiu-jitsu has really helped with my claustrophobia. It kind of sounds contradicting, but when it's probably because I put myself in such uncomfortable situations all the time that my claustrophobia has kind of really taken a backseat. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it does happen. Sometimes I still have these slight panic attacks and whatnot, but it's definitely helped me quite a bit. Another thing that, that can be intimidating is if you're a shy person, you're
Right.
self-conscious. You, like we mentioned in the last one, you have these physical constraints or you're out of shape or whatever, right? That could cause a lot of social anxiety when thinking about, I'm going to walk into this academy. Everyone's going to be better than me. Everyone's going to look at me like I don't know what I'm doing or anything like that. And you start playing all these horrible situations in your head when really it's not. It's typically not like that.
No, not at all. And, when you show up, if you're worried about rolling or any of that, like I said, you can always talk to your partner. You can let them, hey, man, this is my first class. I don't know what I'm doing. I've had them tell me that. And I'm like, hey, no problem, man. Let's just work on what you went over in class and, basic stuff, work on your guard or I'll let them get in mount. I mean, they're going to do whatever it takes to help you out, make you comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. People have been there. And I think that's the thing that new practitioners underappreciate is because everyone says oh yeah, I was there, I've been there, we've been there, but honestly, they have. You can't take that for granted. We all been there. No one comes into jiu-jitsu day one as a black belt. You're not gonna know everything. You're not gonna know everyone. You're gonna be intimidated by higher belts. You're gonna be shy. You're gonna be self-conscious, especially when you start rolling with a higher belt and you feel like, oh, maybe they're gaming with me a little bit.
They're just laying there. Yeah.
You're going to see these people that you feel, they're intimidating. And I still feel that way, right? When people walk in, I mean, not necessarily anymore. Now, if I see a black belt walk in, I'm like, holy crap, it's a black belt. I want to roll with this guy. I want to see if he could beat the crap out of me, how bad he does. You know what I mean? So the social anxiety is real, but you just can't let it control you and stop you from joining or going to class,
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll still get it. If they even mention promotions or testing or any of that stuff, we're 5 years in at this point.
Yeah,
I'm not even going. I get it. You'll still get anxiety, especially if they're talking about testing, which we don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
but, that used to cause a ton of anxiety.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. This episode of Elbows Tight Podcast is brought to you by Amino Co. Travis, go ahead and tell us about Amino Co.
So I have been using Perform by Amino Co. It is 100% science-backed formula, patented, and it is a great pre-workout and intra-workout. Some of the science behind it is it supports athletic performance by triggering muscle protein synthesis and reducing muscle breakdown during exercise. It improves the mental focus and decreases the feelings of fatigue by providing the optimal balance of neurotransmitter precursors. And then finally, it increases nitric oxide production and promotes energy for sustained peak performance. I've been using this about 30 minutes before my jiu-jitsu classes, and I must say it has been helping me immensely. I feel more focused. I feel more energized. Recovery after class feels much better. I wake up in the morning after and don't feel nearly as beaten up, and it tastes great. I have the pink lemonade right here. I have the blue raspberry coming in. Jon, where can people at home find this?
You can go to aminoco.com/elbowstight. You can use the code elbowstight. You'll get 30% off. Again, go to aminoco.com/elbowstight. Use the code elbowstight to get 30% off, and you get a free gift with every purchase.
Ooh.
Thank you, AminoCo.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, and it's like Mike, he talked about, how jiu-jitsu has helped with his like depression, anxiety, exposure therapy. I feel like the mental side of jiu-jitsu is probably, you start off thinking it's going to be all the physical side of you that is gaining from doing jiu-jitsu, but honestly, it's almost like, I'm going to say 70-30. No, probably 60-40 of mental versus physical.
Oh, mental 100%. You'll see it at work. If I have to get up and talk in front of a bunch of people, or I had a job interview a few months ago, or whatever, I'm like, that ain't nothing. Like, I'm like, that ain't shit. Like, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for years. Like, this stuff is not even remotely as challenging as the jiu-jitsu is. Like, cake.
Yeah, people talk about like you gain, once you start training, you gain this confidence of like when you walk into a room and you're like, I'm going to be the hardest person to kill in this room. I mean, it's kind of like douchebaggy, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's true. Like if it feels good, knowing that whether male or female, you're probably going to be the hardest person to fight in the room. You know what I mean? And you expose yourself to getting your butt kicked all the time, and and all these other aspects of life are so trivial, and it doesn't really matter. Your anxiety goes away, your self-consciousness kind of goes away. You become a little more extroverted instead of introverted. Prime example, Charles was extremely introverted when we first started. He didn't even want to like bump fist with people. He wanted nothing to do with their personal space. He wanted no one in his personal space. And then now he's like trying to roll with everyone. He's like, I want to spar. I want to spar. I want to spar. And his confidence is just shot through the roof. So if you're just starting and you have that anxiety, it goes away. You just got to give it time.
Yeah. I think it's really what we're getting down to is survival. Once you survive jiu-jitsu, you feel like you can survive anything, whether that be, like you said, job interviews or whatever. Like, that confidence is just there.
Yeah. It radiates into your entire life. Hell, your significant other might be like, watching you got a little bit more swagger in your walk. You like,
you'll start going to sleep, putting your pillow in holds. Like, it's just the way it is.
I wrist lock my kids now, my babies, my wife. She'll be like standing there, and I'm like, baby, I could just blow your knee out right now. You don't even understand. It's like there's all these memes. It's like the people at the wallflower at the party, and it's like these people don't even understand. I'm a 2-stripe white belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's no more hugging now. It's just grips and pulling.
Yeah, yeah. You're always fighting for the underhook. It's like,
it's just the way it is.
I lay in bed now and I'm like, I have like my arms in tight, I'm sleeping with like ready to post on people if they're trying to come into side control. You just look at life differently. What's so funny too is when we first started, you learn how to switch your hips when you're on the ground, bro. I don't know if it happened to you, but when I first started, if I was laying in bed and I wanted to roll over, it wasn't a slight rollover. It was I switched my hips to like.
That's true.
It just radiates into the rest of your life. You'll be saying "us," like randomly out in the real world. People start looking at you. They'll be like, "Hey, give me fist bumps." You're like, and then you go to like take them down or something like that. So, but the anxiety goes away. Kind of. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but don't let it control you. It won't go away entirely, but you'll be a lot better at controlling it. So, and then this kind of leads into our sixth and final one, which is a lack of knowledge and experience. I honestly think this should have been number one in like priority, right? Because you get there, or you don't want to start because you feel like you don't know anything, or you don't have the experience or knowledge, and there's like jiu-jitsu has like its own terminology, techniques, strategies, and it's like John can attest, it can be super overwhelming when you first start to like absorb all this information, because they're using specific language. Sometimes they speak Japanese.
Look, and I mean, that's common, right? They still do. Like I said, we're years into this journey. Here's something I'm gonna let everybody know. I don't even try to remember all those weird names, Japanese names, all the names of all those moves. It's just not for me. And what I've learned is it's different. Pretty much every gym.
Yeah.
Some will say kesakatami, and some will just like, I don't know. You just get in this position.
Yeah.
Like I like our coach now, that somebody will be like, "What's that called?" And he's like, "It's called I'm choking you." Like,
yeah.
It's easier when you're not trying to learn a new language, because sometimes this will be the first time you heard this stuff. And it's just really difficult to, have 26 steps in a move. It's called something you've never heard before. You get used to it, but in the beginning, it will be overwhelming.
Yeah, and also when you first start, it's very overwhelming to, like John mentioned, all these steps and whatnot, and you think you have to do it step by step in every aspect of the technique. And I keep relaying this back to previous episodes, but Michael Courier brought up a good point. He's like, as a coach, it's not my job to teach you 1 through 8. My job is to teach you to recognize when you have 4 through 6 or 4 through 8 or 6 through 8 in the steps that and then you can still execute the technique. So we've been doing a lot more conceptual learning in class, a lot more kind of like playful learning. And it's been great because I wouldn't say dumbs down our class, but it makes it more consumable, or what's the word I'm looking for? Easier to absorb, I guess you could say, right? Because it's not a 15-step process. It's not 14 different techniques. And it's not, I mean, we're saying this, but that's an over exaggeration. But some people do have, classes where it's like a 3.5 hour long seminar crammed into 1 hour, but there's these other things that go on when you first start, and it is overwhelming. It is intimidating. You're not going to understand what these things are. People are going to be like, "Hey, do you know how to trap and roll?" And you're going to be like, "Is that like a Pillsbury Doughboy thing?"
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I would say, if you're just getting into it, and depending upon where you live, try a couple schools in your area and just watch a class first and see how they teach, see what the terminology is. Like Travis said, our teaching right now is very playful, which I like.
Yeah.
Because you'll find some are very strict, and they're like, "This is the move. This is the only way you can execute the move." And you might be in your brain thinking, well, maybe you have some type of injury that prevents you from getting your hip like that.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to play around and see a way it works with your body. That's kind of the way we are now, and I really enjoy it. So I would just say, look at everything that's around you, find what works best for you, and that should help alleviate some of the fear going into it.
Yeah. And what's the number one thing you always hear when you roll with someone new, John?
I roll with someone new.
When you're like, "Hey, you want to roll?" You're like, "I don't." Yes, but I don't know anything.
Oh yeah, that all the time. Like, I don't know what that is. Or,
yeah, they're like, "I don't know what I'm doing." It's like, yeah, we know. We were there.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm more worried about me rolling with a brand new person than I'm worried about what you're gonna do. Because the challenge for someone that's been doing it for a while is you're not going to have the appropriate reactions to some things.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful on our end.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like that's not a big deal. You shouldn't worry about that or let that scare you or be frightened or whatever when you're looking at a gym or going there. Nobody wants to get hurt, so they're going to take that into account.
Yeah, the knowledge comes with the more you do it. So
yeah.
If you're always in fear of not knowing enough, and then you stop coming because you feel like you're too stupid, or you don't have the experience that you want, or whatever, well, it's contradicting how you're going to get better, because in order to get better is you have to do it. You learn these things from from experiencing it, from doing it in class, from, you know, watching techniques videos. You know, some ways that like overcome a lack of knowledge is you can literally YouTube is such a powerful tool for practitioners nowadays. If you leave class and you're like, man, I got stuck in this position, what do I do and how did I get there? You can literally do like hours of studying at home to increase your knowledge on it. You know what I mean? It's not very binary of either you learn it in class or you don't. You know, there's other aspects and other ways of learning and gaining this stuff to where you feel more comfortable when you first start. I don't necessarily recommend when you first start in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu of studying too much, just because my personal experience, I felt like it took up a lot of space and didn't necessarily help me too much. And I felt overwhelmed because I would, like we mentioned before, we would go to class, we would learn technique in class, and then we would, you know, try to roll and do our own thing, or we would leave class and try to learn something else that had nothing to do with what was going on in class. You know, just focus on what's being taught in your academy, and you know, if you're gonna learn, try to grow what they're teaching. Then, you know what I mean. I feel bad for people if they come to class and they're like, hey, today we're gonna learn lasso guard, or we're gonna do some spider or single leg X or whatever. Like, those could be very intimidating because they can be very complex positions when you first start. But it happens. You just got to keep showing up. The worst thing you could do is stop showing up because you feel like you're not understanding something.
Yeah, don't get disheartened. Like if you see one of your classmates that might be picking it up faster than you and you started at the same time, just remember this is not for the majority of people going to be your full-time job doing jiu-jitsu. You know, if somebody's going 4 times a week and you're going 2 times a week, they're definitely going to pick it up quicker.
Yep.
Like, don't try to compare yourself to everyone else's journey. Just focus on you and see your improvement week to week.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, because everyone's journey is different. Everyone's learning style is different. You know, the physical ability, physical attributes, these all play into how you learn, your knowledge gained, the experiences gained. You know, and like some of the people that are less physically capable of doing some of this stuff, it's going to take longer for you to understand these things, and that is okay. No one's going to make fun of, well, people might poke fun at you when they get to know you, right? Like, but it's kind of like a camaraderie thing. It's like,
for sure.
You'll even poke fun at yourself, like Jon does all the time. He's like, you lost me 10 minutes ago and this, I don't understand what the hell's going on. You know, it's okay. Don't let that fear stop you. I feel like I keep saying that, but it's true, man, because we talked to Steve Kwan once again from BJJ Mental Models, and you know, people think that most people stop at blue belt, but that's not true. Most people stop at white belt, and I feel like, you know, one of these 6 things is why people stop coming, and it sucks because, you know, sometimes you're like, man, this guy's really good, he's crushing it, and then he stops coming, and it's like, you know, it's like, oh man, I don't have enough time. You know, I get nervous when I show up. You know, I just feel like I'm not learning. You know, it's like, and it all can be not. I wouldn't say all of it, but you know, just showing up helps out quite a bit. So
100%.
Yeah. So, but these are the 3 things. Kind of recap the last 3. Jon, what was the first one?
Time and financial commitments. Just take a look. See the benefit you're getting out of it. You know, you'll look at what is it, holistically, how it's helping both mentally and physically for, you know, at the most a couple $100 a month.
Yeah. And work with your significant other, your partner. You know, don't try to do this alone, because otherwise it's gonna, it's a lot harder. You know, work with them to work it into how it can benefit your family. Number 2, social anxiety. We all get it. Everyone's, you know, at some point is intimidated. They don't want to show up. They, you know, they feel weird rolling with new people, or they're self-conscious and shy. You know, if that's your personality type, everyone's been there. Just do it. Just show up. The anxiety you can get it under control better when you actually start.
And the lack of knowledge and experience, we just talked about it. And I think one of the key things that Travis has mentioned several times is one way you can help with all of the items we listed is just by showing up. showing up will get you better in pretty much everything that we discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are the last 3. Let us know how you guys feel about these 3, how you guys overcame them. If you ever had, one of these 6 fears, go listen to part 1 if you haven't already. It's another great episode. I really think that these captured a lot of what it's like to when you first start jujitsu. And if you're still in that, first couple months or whatnot, it gets easier, man. It gets easier. I promise. You're right there. Just don't stop. I mean, literally at 6 months, I feel like a flip switches and you're like crushing it. So, Jon, you got anything else?
No, and I mean, just so everyone knows, I mean, these are feeling pretty near and dear to me right now after that long break. So just stick with it.
You guys got it. We believe in you. Let us know how your guys' journey is. Hit us up on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Elbows Tight everywhere. Elbows Tight Podcast on Facebook. Check out our Supercast. And yeah, we just want to make sure that you guys are getting the most value out of your journey and the experiences that we've had. So thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home. And remember, no oil checks here.
Goose.
I didn't do that the last one.
It's all right.
Peace.